am John Shores. I'm Client Development Specialist here at A2V Media, and I'm with...
Michael Lux of Lux Media Solutions.
Nice to have you, Mike. Thanks so much for coming. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what your business does and how you got into your line of work.
Yeah, so Lux Media Solutions is a local Connecticut performance agency. So we position ourselves as consultants. So we go in and problem solve for clients, whether it's scaling up, startup businesses, getting seed funding, or fixing a problem with a current agency or a current issue like lead generation, website traffic, sales. The other half of what we do is performance media. So we buy media at a local, mass, national scale, run it, optimize it for the best performance.
Gotcha.
By being heavily into analytics.
Yeah, and what got you interested in this line of work? Was this something, were you always kind of interested in the serial entrepreneur side of the business when you were younger, coming through school?
Yeah, good question. I think initially I was attracted to the sexiness of creative advertising, so big ideas, concepts, graphics. I think the vehicle that got me really into it and helped me visualize it. Not many people know this, but was Who's the Boss in the late 80s, early 90s. Yep. I think the mom character was in advertising. Mm-hmm. So that was a little window into what that world was like, and that was attractive to me. Mm-hmm. And I kept that kind of in my subconscious as going through high school. And then freshman year of college, I decided I wanted to get into marketing to understand really the global sense of marketing. And then from there, what discipline that I wanted to go to was eventually agencies.
Sure, and I'm sure that industry, even when you go to school with it, you're still learning new things every single day, right? We're seeing new systems coming and new, trends and whatnot. So that's all good. One of the cool things I've noticed about when reading on your website about your business was you really do show a great pride of being from Fairfield and being from this area and this neighborhood, and you really kind of show that on your website and to your customers. Why do you take such pride in that? And, what is it about that from being around here makes it, attuned to what you do?
I would say that I am proud of being from Fairfield, but I am using that as an advantage from a business standpoint because I understand the world of media, both paid, organic, owned, all of that to promote a brand, product, or service, right? Or message. And having local knowledge is everything in terms of audience receptivity, understanding the local audience in terms of what they consume, their buying behaviors. Having that knowledge before I started Lux Media, I thought would be extremely beneficial for myself in terms of being an expert and being able to strategize for the local marketplace, knowing the competition, knowing what the cost of entry is for a lot of media buys. Mm-hmm. And then really, I went to high school in Fairfield. Mm-hmm. So I commuted to the town of Fairfield as a high schooler, and I got to know the community. Mm. And I told myself when I graduated high school, before I went off to college, that I always wanted to live there again when I started a family. And I did. And it wasn't like a mission. It kind of just happened. Yeah. But I'm very happy and kind of like the roots that I've started here.
Yeah, for sure. So I know we were talking a little bit about, some of the, customers that you're working with. And, one of the reasons we've been working together with A2V Media is obviously your customers understand the value of video. From your perspective, what makes video such an important part of when, especially nowadays when you talk about current trends for a particular customer's campaign, and what's the importance behind that?
I would say it's timely. This could change. It will change. As of right now, video is just the vehicle that works best. And that really comes down to two things. On the consumer side, it's about consuming something that your attention span can handle, right? It comes down to the science and the nuts and bolts of it. But they can absorb video, and we appreciate, as consumers, we appreciate that message being told in that visual audio way. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, the business, the brand side, and the creative side, to me, it comes down to storytelling. And video, if we're utilizing this properly for brands and businesses, and it's done in a really good creative way, can tell that story. Why is it so important to tell a story nowadays? Because you have to break through. Because especially post-COVID, there's extreme competition at all industries and levels.
Got to get the hook in, right?
Yes, you have to stand out. Unfortunately, no one knows that you're the best or the best price or anything like that, the best service. It comes down to really selling yourself on quality and surrounding yourselves with those quality, those people. But so video is that storytelling medium that can tell you in a way that's much more believable than just text. So especially with the emergence of AI, trust goes down and brand trust will continue to drop.
Yeah, for sure. And so I know, customers, sometimes have an idea on how to get their videos seen. And then they obviously come to you because clearly, maybe something's not working for them. So what are some of the things that you like to bring to the table to make sure a video is not just recorded, but seen by intended audiences?
So that's coming down to getting enrooted with analytics. Analytics data will tell a story. It's all about the path of least resistance, the most efficient and effective way to spend money to reach a customer. So data is going to give you the best chance because you're relying on the past to tell you what does a predicted future look like. So that's what it comes down to with marketing and media. I think the hard part is knowing what type of research to look at, to understand the other variables out there like competition, new businesses coming in, local, national laws, regulations, privacy, and acts that will affect a lot of things that you're doing from a marketing and business standpoint. There's many variables.
Sure. So what is the difference between getting an agency to promote a video versus someone doing it themselves? Why do you think there is a value in having that third party kind of come in and take a fresh approach to somebody's business?
Yeah, great question. I think from someone that has never worked with an agency, doesn't appreciate it, will always have a strong opinion that they don't need it until you test it out or you hear from. It comes down to resources, experience, and knowing where it goes. I think the best thing I can say about this is scale. If you're a business owner and you want to promote a video yourself, you're going to either do research yourself or use a vehicle like Facebook or YouTube that you're comfortable with maybe. And that's just a one-shot try to get your consumers, and it's just an environment. Whereas an agency will look at things holistically if they're doing the strategy work right to see how do we reach this ideal target audience, not agnostic to one channel or another.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple different channels there. How do you keep up with current social media trends? So, it used to be, I'm sure even when you started your business, it was a lot of, hey, come here. Here's a link to this. Nowadays it's video, largely social video. And, of course, anytime something like a TikTok at Congress happens, I'm sure you're keeping your, eyes on that type of a story. And, when Elon Musk buys a Twitter and kind of changes the dynamic of that platform, how do you keep up with those trends? And then what are you kind of looking for? And how does that impact the pluses and minuses of your business?
Staying on top of trends is hard because it all comes down to the commodity that we all want and need is time. Especially if some of us decide to have families, the time becomes even shorter. I would say that my experience has over the years has led myself to not hyper focus on daily or weekly trends. It's a long game. So if something is emerging, just keep an eye on it. Don't look into it. And like when AI came back on the scene last year, everyone tried to subscribe, test. Everything was also in its infancy. So I take the careful approach, especially when it comes down to investments, either for our own agency or on a client's behalf, because there's just a lot out there. And it's better to be careful when it comes down to things like that.
Sure. So who are some dream collaborators that you'd love to work with in the future on setting up campaigns and whatnot? Is there any brands or something that you'd always kind of admire that you're like, I'd love to do something with these guys?
I'm a big fan of startups, stalled startups. The reason why, and I know that's a very niche answer, is because I know from my experience working with Lux Media on the consulting side and working with startup brands, there's so much potential that's lost in the if they can't get funded, and a lot of really good ideas and frankly brands go to die.
Yeah.
And when I've been working with a lot of these brands and startups, and some of them have sold out, some of them have excelled due to funding mostly, I feel like I would love to get to attach myself from a personal and selfish standpoint to brands that are not in the mainstream. So that you're not your Coca-Colas and your Pepsis of the world. I did that in my past agency life and working with big national, international companies and brands. I find I get much more joy out of the smaller, I would call them indie brands, not just startups, but indie brands that are trying to break through. Well, they're lucky enough to get to a successful point, but then they're getting eaten up by Amazon margins. How do they succeed? And that's a point where a lot of companies could use a lot help. Sure. So that's my sweet spot at the moment.
So you were mentioning startups before. I know, obviously a very popular, TV show, Shark Tank. People, I'm a fan, admittedly. But what do you think there are misconceptions that come from a series like that you have to almost kind of dissuade when you're working with startup clients? And, how does that affect the conversations you have?
To me, what you just said makes me think about if and when I inject my personal opinion into it. It's a lot to say on that topic. I would say that I learned in the beginning of starting Lux Media and working with a lot of these indie startup brands that my personal opinion as a consumer could be said in a time. There's a time and place to say it, and it should be said. What I've learned, I would have said in the past to smile and always make the client happy because that's how I was taught. Be reactive, not proactive. I've learned a lot since then to, especially when you need to run your own company, you have to be proactive or else you will die. Sure. Being reactive is just going to cause anxiety for yourself and everyone that you manage. And I would say that is kind of how I would go back. Does that answer your question?
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.